Welcome to Carter's Retro Reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing Impact Racing for the Sega Saturn. Now before I get onto this review, just something really quickly. I was on the bus the other day and this cute little Asian kid gets on board and he must be like 8-10 years old. And so we're on the bus is dead quiet, I'm just minding my own business, and then I notice, or I start to hear this music. Initially I don't pay too much attention to it, but of course the bus is quiet and I can hear the lyrics. And seriously, it's this rap song, and it's seriously the most offensive thing I've ever heard in my life. And I'm looking around, and I'm surrounded by a bunch of old ladies who I'm sure are all deeply offended. They're not saying anything, but like this little kid pulls out his phone, and it's his ringtone. and then he answers the phone. He's like, "Yes, hello." And he said, seriously, the cutest little accent that he's got going on there. Maybe even a slight speech impediment, which makes him even more adorable. Yes, hello? Yeah? Okay. Bye, Mum. And then just puts the phone away. I'm like, that shit. He fucking gangster. I vaguely remember playing this game 2 or so years ago and being quite dismissive of it. Jesus, a lot has changed. I thought it felt dodgy and the gameplay was confusing, but this time around it felt quite different. I couldn't help but think of what Canada Brad said when he said he didn't care for racing games unless you could shoot shit. Well, Brad, I found a game that suits you right down to the ground. This game was developed by Funcom and released on both the PlayStation and the Saturn in 1996. It was published by JVC in the PAL region, Acclaim in the US, and Coconuts Japan in, Japan. But something was special about this game because it received a special release in Korea, which is, something not completely unheard of, but it's not common either. The only other interesting tidbit I could muster up is that GameFAQs, for some reason, has this as the worst racer on the console, which is simply not true, and that's not even opinion. I've played some games that were absolutely bottom of the barrel type stuff, with broken controls, looking absolutely terrible, and this is really neither. It's absolutely bewildering, now that I've played this game, that any site can have that opinion unless you've never really played another racing game before. Even hardcore 4x4 is actually at the top of the list of races. It's like we're not even playing the same game. It's better than Sega Rally, Wipeout 2097, Outrun, Road Rash. High Velocity is at the top of this list? I haven't even played that game, and it would need to have unrealistic high expectations for it to be that good, which I highly doubt. So, how does this game fare? The presentation doesn't fill me with any kind of enthusiasm or optimism, but it's not bad. The menu presentation is dark and nothing really pops, but retrospection carefully reminds me that the rest of the game was more or less like this. But then again, I enjoyed myself, so it's not the be-all end-all. At the very least, it's clean and nothing too offensive on the eyes. In-game presentation was not bad. I don't know how, but it does look like it could be done better. It just feels like they're trying too hard to give you too much. Graphics aren't the greatest, which is why it's so easy to dismiss the game, but by no stretch of the imagination are they terrible. I will say straight up though, that there was quite a bit of glitching throughout, but that's where the criticism stops. The animation, sense of speed, distance are all more than enough. Okay, so there's a fair bit of pop in as well, but the controls really fill that gap quite effectively. The colours are a little on the dull side, but it actually makes for atmospheric driving. The sound is pretty average techno. Sound effects are explosions and pew pew and shit. This game has several facets to it which makes it far more interesting than just driving around in a fucking circle. This is not just a racing game. I mean, sure, you're racing against the time, but you're not racing against others. Your car is clearly far better than the others on the road. The other cars are also made less out of any kind of metal and more like 3-ply toilet paper. A couple of lasers into the back of the car or a missile and they fall quicker than a punch to the nuts. When you destroy a car, it will give you armor, energy, and time. The most surprising thing was that at any time during the race, I could have received any of them and they were all equally needed. The hardest aspect of the game was not the handling, as the cars handle really well. The concentration was not on that. Don't come into this game expecting any kind of racing sim, because you'll be sorely disappointed. This is as far from reality as it gets. The hardest part was actually trying to collect the power-ups. As you progress through each level, you're required to destroy so many cars to get to the bonus level, which gives you the opportunity to upgrade your weapon, okay, which is rad, but more importantly, it also allows you to save your progress. You have several cars to choose from, and they all have their nuances and feel slightly different from each other, which is all really nice. You also have several different level locations to power through. The game is a one-player, which, okay, yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but the game itself is fun enough to play for a few playthroughs, but it does feel like, yes, you will reach a moment where you'll put it down and never come back to it, sadly. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I would. It has some rough edges, but the gameplay is fun, and the controls are accurate enough to ensure a good time. My only prerequisite is don't pay too much for it. I heard the PAL version can be quite pricey, and in that regard, I don't think it's worth the money. I own the US copy, which I bought for I think $15 to $20, and it's worth every penny.